What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Played Out Podcast, a competitive focus Age of Sigmar podcast. My name is Kyle, aka Creator Gator, and I'm here as always with the Grandmaster General, James. James, how are you doing?
What it do, Kyle?
We are here. We're going to be talking about something that I think is very important to start for the new edition. We're going to be talking about all the different battle plans that are in the GHB. There are 12 of them. We're going to be covering. I'm going to be covering 6. James is going to be covering 6. And nothing feels worse than showing up to a game with a person and you start looking at the mission and you're like, yeah, this is what this does.
That's a lot of words.
That's a lot of words. Yeah, you're like, hey, we fight and, you know, I hit you, you hit me, and we fight over these objectives. Sometimes we score battle tactics. And then halfway through the game, you realize none of this works the way we thought it did. And the scoring is entirely differently. So our goal is to make a tier list of basically the battle plans that we enjoy, and as well as cover each one for all the information that is important to playing it within 3 minutes. So each battle plan gets 3 minutes of time. We're going to tell you what we think, what the pros, what the cons are, and how generally it works. I would encourage everyone to read it, especially if a battle plan or a tournament says this. These are the 6
included. Yeah, exactly. These are like the 8 potentials that you're going to get. Like it's good to familiarize yourself with what the twists are, how you score, what are the complications for each battle plan. Because it's as much as like a lot of these are 1-2 more, there's a lot of like, it's not like 2-2-2. It's like 1-3, it's scaling. So,
Yeah, there's a lot of nuances. So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to get in here and talk about all 12, just so that we, for our own sake, have gone through and said, oh, I physically have seen that before. We've talked about it before. We kind of know what's up. And then when we get to the table and we read the full thing, we'll kind of understand it a little bit more.
Yeah, and I can tell you confidently, I've only played 3 games so far, just because I've been busy. But I've already screwed up some of these rules.
Easy to do. Yeah, that's my one thing was I was hoping the GHBs would get simpler, and the seasonal rules definitely did get simpler, but these still have some nitty gritty in there.
Yeah, I think nuance is a good word. There's nuance to scoring.
There's nuance to scoring, so you do have to know how you're supposed to be doing this before you jump in there. Otherwise, you're going to get halfway through and realize, I don't know how we're scoring.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think I won, but I'm not 100% sure.
I'm not sure if a touchdown is 6 points in this mission. Big, makes a difference. But without further ado, because we do have a lot to cover, James is going to be covering the missions under Table 1. I'm going to be covering the missions under Table 2. So we'll be starting off with Table 1, Battle 1, for James. James, what do you got for us?
Do you want to, just as a heads up, because this is something, do you want to popcorn back and forth, or do you want me to just run through Table 1?
Let's popcorn back and forth, just to give ourselves a little bit of break.
I like that. All right, cool. So Battle Plan 1, Table 1 is Border War, right? This one is one that I've actually played before, the one that I screwed up the rule. There are 4 objectives, and it's Dawn of War style deployment. The underdog, essentially the way this works is you score, there's 1 objective in your opponent's territory, 1 objective in your territory, and 2 on the border, right? You score 1 for holding your home objective, you score 5 for holding their objective, and you score 2 points for the flank objectives. The twist with this one is you can't score more. You can't score more than 6 points. And if you charge onto the objective in your opponent's territory, you get to add 1 for rolls to hit. So it's advantageous for you to go be aggressive and try to take that 5-point objective.
For the underdog.
Yeah, for the underdog, right? So it's definitely a conditional twist. So I think this one is actually going to be in B tier for me. 4 objectives, so not a ton of scoring. It's somewhat linear in play, and the twist isn't super engaging, but it's not unfun. And I think it's a very you can be okay, I'm comfortable with trying to score 5 every single time and not going into my opponent's turn, and you'll still score very well throughout the mission. But it's not as engaging as others that I find more fun, and they put more power in the underdog's pocket, So Border War is a B for me. Very this is a good intro, I think, for players, but it's not as engaging as other ones are.
What anything about the terrain strike you?
Oh, right. So the terrain here is kind of meh. Like the places of power are on the border. So it's going to be tough to get your wizard out there to really do much. The obscuring is in the back corner. So unless you're like trying to save maybe a character in the corner or, you're trying to save a caster back there, it's not, I don't see it as impactful as other things. So I think it's, again, meh. Like I'm getting a meh. Like nothing does it really for me it's because it's also got the small place of power. So I'm like, eh.
Yeah. Small place of power on the mid means no one's going to be able to use it turn 1, which is important for like trying to summon incarnates and stuff like that.
Yeah, get all your manifestations up and moving. Yeah, 100%. So overall, B, it's not a bad mission. It's going to be a fun mission to play. I definitely see this one being in mission packs because it's somewhat simple and like a lot of armies play it well. So
I've seen something like that before where it's like the objective that's harder to get to has an incentive for it, and sometimes it can be a massive bait where like, oh, in order for me to pull ahead, I have to go and take this objective. Well, they're 30% of their hammer force is sitting right there waiting to jump on you. So it can be a bit of a bait and not actually something you want to do.
Yeah.
But that brings us to time for that. The next one is up for me, and that is Battle for the Past. So I gave this one an S tier, specifically because it has 4 objectives, 1 in your territory, 2 in the middle, and 5 for the opponent's objective, 4 for the battle tactic, and the prime's capped at 6. And for this one, the underdog can add 2 to the control score for friendly non-hero units, which is big for scrapping. The terrain has a small place of power near the middle of the objectives, and it's great for turn 1 flanks because turn 1 take their flanks because there is a small outcropping of of neutral territory on either side next to the small edge of the board. But yeah, I give this S tier because it's very nice for take the turn 1, take the flanks. They have a place of power which potentially can be usable. I mean, you can't use it turn 1, but it's like you're going to be scrapping over it, which I think is better than having one way in the back and each person is just sitting on it summoning infinite manifestations.
Yeah.
There's a lot of obscuring. There's 4 medium pieces of terrain, and they're kind of obscuring, and they're all in the middle, which means sitting in the back and doing something is going to be more difficult. And I really like the underdog adding 2 to the control score of friendly non-hero units. And that's just overall. It looks like, primary is capped at 6, and you can add 2 to the control score of friendly non-hero units. So that's like big for scrapping, you know what I mean? Especially when there's only 4 objectives. It makes those middle objectives, scrap a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
And a little bit like ways back in the underdog. I think it's going to be impactful. But it's S tier because it's relatively simple. It's easy. There are easy turn 1 battle tactics that you can get. And the twist, I think, is impactful for the underdog when you guys start scrapping a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like frequently like those like the objectives you're scrapping over will come to like, okay, I have OC 9, you have OC 7. You know what I mean? Like it's close. It's always close.
Yeah.
I really like the OC system, and I think that twist is going to be a very interesting play because it's going to it's going to unlock certain battle tactics as well. You know?
Yeah. Especially with that underdog twist being like the OC bump being combined with the score 5 victory points if you control the objective wholly within your opponent's territory.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, that little combo can be pretty devastating, and for a little swing, you know what I mean, make the game a little more interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like it. I look forward to, like, I read this one and I know it's similar to yours because it's like the first one at the thing, but I read it and I was like, oh, I'm interested in playing this. I want to play this one next, you know?
Yeah.
All
right. Popcorn back
that
over
one for that. Yep.
All right. So next will be my Battle Plan 2 Table 1. It's focal points. I actually really like this one. There's definitely like more sophisticated than just standing on circles in this one as well, because there's 2 home objectives designated as home objectives, 2 flank objectives designated as flank objectives, and then 1 center objective, right? The way that this works is you score differently depending on what you're holding, right? So it's not just 1, 2 more. It's you get 1 point for holding 1, 1 point for holding 2, 1 point for holding more, and then 1 for holding more. Sorry. 1 point for holding 1 point for holding more than 1 point for holding more than your opponent, and then 3 points for either holding both flanks or both homes, right? So you kind of like make the choice of going like vertically on the board or horizontal on the board. Like your strategy needs to dictate that for you to get 3 points on your primary, which is big, you know?
Yeah.
The underdog mechanic is that you can turn the center objective either into a flank or a home objective, so it makes it a little easier to score those extra 3 points. But it's one of those things like you're still going to be scrapping in the middle if you're an underdog. It's not easy to take, you know. I see this being a very challenging. It's a very challenging mission, I think, because it puts a lot of agency in the choices of the player, and like people that have more movement are going to have a lot easier time scoring on this mission because they kind of control where they want to engage. You know, in addition, I think the deployment map is actually really interesting. The obscuring's right down the center, so it matters for like big shooting armies or blocks that you want to have to threaten all the objectives. The places of power are like off in the corners, so even though they're not really threatening specific objectives, you can have them like pumping out the manifestations or debuffs or something like that onto a home or flank objective. Yeah. So I think that this is going to be like a high like engagement mission. I think this is going to be a very interesting, like it's going to put a lot of power in the player and the general, which I think is like, I would love to see like this mission be like played at final table. You know what I mean? Because this is like, okay, like you're not just winning because you're playing a broken army, you're winning because your skill expression as a general comes through. And I like the deployment map. I mean, the deployment map is the only thing I think is kind of a miss. It's not my S tier. So, because it's like the weird like steps. I don't know what you call that.
Yeah, I was going to say, you and I have played in the past and you complained about it's 11 inches. You know what I mean? Each of the squares are 11 inches, like short wise. And if you go 9 inches from that, now you have 2 inches.
Yeah. But it's not as bad as the other one from last season. I can't remember what that. I think it was called it wasn't Frigid Zephyr. It was some other
one. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not that bad. It's only in like a little like quadrant. And it's going to be annoying to set up, but I do think all the rules of this make me excited about this mission. So it's my A. I think it's a solid A, and it's really close with my S, but you know, something's got to be first, somebody's got to be second. All right, I'll toss it back over to you, Kyle.
Yep. For me, we're looking at Table 2, Battle Plan 2, and this is Scorched Earth. So there's 8 objectives, which is a little bit different. And then after the second battle round, after scoring points, the active player can pick one of the objectives in the enemy territory that they control and being contested by enemy, and then they can remove it. So they have to control it. It has to be contested, and then they have the choice of removing it. It also has to be the enemy territory. A lot of asterisks there. Then at the start of each battle round, the underdog can pick one objective in their territory that they control until the end of the battle round, and they -5 from control score of enemies that are on that to a minimum of 1. It's hold 1, hold more, hold 1, hold 2, hold more, and 4 for battle tactics. And notably, on the suggested terrain, there is no place of power.
Yeah.
So you got to do it raw. But yeah, this mission is my D tier. There's a lot of like choice in it, but there's a lot of choice with a lot of asterisks. So you have to take. You can only start removing things in your enemy territory if you hold it, they're contesting it, and you're in the enemy territory. Which for me is going to come up. You're very rarely. You know what I mean? You're either going to like jump on it immediately, like take it, or you're not. You know what I mean? You're just going to like chill. So it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of like thinking about that, especially with the underdog. I do like the subtracting 5 from the control scores of enemy units that are contesting an objective in your territory. And that's at the start of the battle round. Yeah. That is at the start of the battle round. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's not like, oh, they played their whole turn thinking that they're going to get something. And then you say, no, actually, I'm the underdog, so you're not. You basically dictate at the start of the turn, you're going to be -5. So either kill me or leave, you know. Yeah. But I don't know how I feel about the no place of power. I feel like that's going to be... We've seen how
hard it is to cast.
We've seen how hard it is to cast in this edition. We've seen how sparse lists are on casts if you're not like Nagash or, you know, a Slan or something like that. So we'll see how that works. maybe there also might be tournament packs that are just like, you know what, I'm going to have a place of power in every single mission of mine.
It's a fun. So. I think that's a fun rule. Like place of power is a fun rule because it's more engaging with those foot heroes that you don't necessarily care about, and it's like it definitely you feel it when you don't have it. You know.
Yeah, true. Other than that, it's just like your regular like flag, like Polish flag kind of looking map. So it's pretty bog standard with that. It's just the 8 objectives and things like potentially shifting is going to be interesting. So
8 objectives is nutty.
Yeah, I will pass it back over to you.
Okay, so this is STARSTRIKE, Battle Plan 3, Table 1. This one's a bit of a bear. So you only start the battle with 1 objective, and then on the top of 3 is when you add more objectives to the game, and it's all based on dice rolls, right? Yep. So if you're looking at the map now, which you should be, essentially at the beginning of the third battle round, the active player rolls 2 dice to determine where, rolls 2 dice twice to determine where objectives are set up in the attacker's territory and the defender's territory, right? Because it's Dawn of War deployment. They're all kind of set up on that like midline, like bisecting your like horizontally your deployment zone. But there's like a special rule that like if the objective that you're summoning in hits a terrain feature, any units that are engaged with that terrain feature take mortal wounds because it basically explodes. And then that terrain feature becomes an objective because I think it's like thematically like comets coming down and like becoming these like places of power.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So you get 3 victory points if you control at least 1 objective, and then 3 victory points if you control more objectives than your opponent. So it's not super engaging when it comes to scoring, or there's not a lot of minutia with scoring. It's just 1 more, you know? And then battle tactic. It's got a very strange terrain map. It's 4 big obscuring terrain pieces.
There's lots of woods.
Yeah, lots of woods. And then there's like the little like area terrain. And I'm just like, okay, well that's like somewhat uninteresting to me. I mean, it's great if you're fighting a shooting army, but like other than that, this like, you know, there's no cover. There's cover, but like there's not much other, you know.
Yeah. I wonder if they did that specifically because they want stars to fall on it.
Yeah, literally. Well, I think they're all in the spot where the stars would fall, you know? So I don't know. Or there's only a couple in the spot where there's only 2. Yeah, there's 2 in the spots where the stars would fall because it's like it has to be like perfectly bisecting. So if you roll like a 6 or an 8, there's the only time it would happen.
Okay, I see it now. Yeah,
but I will say this is my F tier. This doesn't seem like 1 objective until like in the first 2 battle rounds is like, you know, if you're a non-engagement army, you're just like not going to score 6 points for 2 rounds in a row. You know, like if you're playing like Nurgle or like some like crazy, like, oh, I just like park 20 dudes on this point and it's impossible to move them. Like you're not taking that objective, you know, It's not a big objective that you have to cover.
Yeah.
So I think it's my F tier. I'm like, again, as much as it's got like a lot of flavor and it's like cool or whatever, this is like the scoring, like the rules are very complicated. The scoring is very simple and the objective map is too simple. So it's complicated in the ways that I don't want it to be complicated and very simple in the ways that I would like it to be somewhat complicated. So overall, this is kind of like I don't really want to see this one played in tournaments. It's fine for like a fun game, you know? The first game I played this go around in 4 was in this game, and I was like, this is crazy. I have no idea how this is going to work.
We'll talk about it more in the summary, but I think like our general takes boil down to like, I want to play my opponent. I don't want to play like, I don't want to feel like I'm fighting against the mission.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
This is one of those.
Exactly. Yeah. This is a very much like we would have a fun time if like we were all in like the theater of the mind playing this. But when I roll up to a random tournament with a random person across the board, I just want to know the objective and know how I want to play.
And I don't want to argue about these rules. This is like the most rules by far of any of these. But yeah, overall F tier, not super psyched about it. And then I'll popcorn it over to you, Kyle.
Sounds good. So mine, we got the Battle Plan 3, Table 2. This is called A Better Part of Valor, and this is my A tier. So it's got 6 objectives. It's hold 1, hold 2, hold more. And then if you kill an enemy with a fight ability on an objective with a non-hero unit, the unit gains the dominant keyword. As long as it's on that specific objective, it's dominant. And what that means is you add 10 to the control score, and the underdog also adds 1 to hits that target dominant units. So basically you mark yourself, say like, all right, if the underdog is fighting a dominant unit, they get +1 to hit against it. Yeah. But +10 to your control score is pretty nice. The territory, the long end is the 50-50, so it's your Dawn of War. Terrain, it has a very big place of power in the middle of the board, so two big places of power, and there's a couple like asterisks for how the things work, but I think that's a really awesome concept where it's like if you can push people off the board and get this dominant keyword, you have like 10 to the control score while you're sitting on that. So yeah, the underdog is going to get a bonus to move you off that.
But it's very fun.
But it's very like, all right, well, I hope you can kill me with that bonus, because if you can't, 10 plus 10 is crazy.
Yeah, but one of my guys lives.
11.
Yeah.
that's nutty. But yeah, that's why it's my A. Is like it's relatively simple, as you can see compared to the last one. I got through that relatively quickly, and like the asterisks are like you have to do a fight ability with a non-hero unit contesting the same objective, and that's about it. And if you destroy an enemy unit on that objective, you get the dominant keyword for that objective. You're like, a big sign pops up behind you, and you're like, I won, let's go.
Yeah.
So
I do like that these are also like blasts from the past as well. Like all of these missions have been like in other packs before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's no disappearing objectives. There's 2 big places of power that are close to the middle, so you're going to get a lot of like the big mages that want to kind of slap in the middle are going to be up there like getting bonuses. Nagash, Great Unclean One, you know what I mean? Like all those guys. So yeah, I'm excited for this one. It's in my A tier for a reason. I like it. So nice. I will popcorn it back over to you.
Cool. My next one is shifting objectives. That's Battle Plan 4 Table 1. So essentially the way this one works is you pick, there's 3 objectives in the center, and then there's this like strange like little like bar deployment in the bottom left hand part of your deployment zone. So not a large deployment zone, especially if you have like a heavy bodied army. You're like kind of like struggling for space. Mm-hmm. You essentially roll, and then the underdog can make the decision after the first round, obviously, to make the primary objective re-rolled. So essentially, like after if it's like 1, 2, 3, if it's 2 in the center and you don't have control of that, you can be like, hey, re-roll it. Hopefully, I get 3 where I have like OC 20. You score 1 victory point for each secondary objective that you control. So like the 2 that are not the primary, 2 for the primary, and then 2 for holding more than your opponent, and then 4 for the battle tactic. So relatively easy mission. There's not a ton of objectives, so it's going to be one of those that you kind of have to get. You can't play as KG on this one. You have to get onto the middle, and you have to get on the objectives because they're all right in the center, not super 15 inches from each other. This one also has I think it has my favorite terrain map because it's got the big obscuring terrain right in the middle of your deployment zone. So it gives you options to kind of hide your units. It gives, what's it called? You have a place of power off in the corner, right? So it's one of those things that it's like, you can't deploy a ton over there, but you can run off to that place of power and park somebody there to like be influential for the rest of the game, which is nice. This, however, is a little... The rules aren't super engaging here, and I don't like the underdog doesn't like pick the primary. They just have to re-roll it, Mm-hmm. There's only 3 objectives, so this is going to end up being my my C tier. So I think that this is definitely one we can see in tournament play. But I think this is maybe like day 1, mission 1. You know what I mean? Get people warmed up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of minutia to scoring here. It's like somewhat random and not super complicated, even though the deployments are cool. I like the deployments, and I like the terrain map a lot. So there's definitely benefits, but it's not as interesting as like Focal Points or Border War, where there's a lot more strategy in how you score rather than like oh,
Yeah.
like, oh, I just got, you know, all my stuff's on objective number 1 and like objective number 3 is the primary, so I'm just not going to score this turn, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. We've definitely played ones like this where there's 3, 1 is the prime. So you have to kind of like, all right, well, do I allocate things in the middle and then shift to a prime, or do I basically just like take 2 and hope that the prime becomes one of those 2?
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like, it's not bad, but it's kind of a nothing burger. You know what I mean? Like, it's not super spicy. So
yeah,
good to warm up in AoS 4. Not a bad mission, but not as engaging as others. And I'll throw that back to you, Kyle.
Sounds good. So Battle Plan 4, Table 2 is the Vice, and I know we saw this like relatively early on. We got hold 1, hold 2, hold more. There are 4 objectives that start out in the corner. There's an FAQ about this one where the token is like centered on the corner. It doesn't start like on the board, just so everyone's aware. In round 4 and 5, you score 2 points if there are no enemy units within 6 of the final objective, I believe. And then at the start of the second battle round, the objectives move to the second point on the map. And at the start of the 4th battle round, only 1 is in the middle, and that's when you have that round 4, round 5 score 2 if there are no enemy units within 6 of the middle. At the end of the underdog's turn, they can pick 1 objective and deal D3 damage to each unit on an objective. The territory, it's long edge deployment 50-50, so your Dawn of War style. And then this is in my C tier because I hate moving discs. I like this.
I don't want to move the objectives. I want them to be there.
I know. And then I was like, oh, well, I'll just set up objectives and we can like turn them off as we go. You can't because you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
9? You need 9?
You need 9 because it moves to the center. You know what I mean? So like you'd have to have 1 in the center and then like 4 and 4.
Yeah.
So that's like my only big thing that I don't like about this. I do like the concept of it where it's like it's moving and like I wouldn't mind playing that as long as the objectives are already there and we don't have to like pick everything up and move it and put it down. Or like I guess you can always use the token. You know what I mean? We like using disc because like perfect.
It's easy and I don't have to measure.
Exactly. Perfect world of information feels good when you can move stuff and be like, oh, I just barely touch onto it and I'm good. I don't have to sit there and be like measure, move. But it's in my C tier because I don't like moving the stuff.
Cool mission. Like definitely dynamic, but like
definitely dynamic, definitely cool, definitely great for fast armies. I mean, fast armies are good. Any mission they get to play on. There's a place of power that you're going to be able to activate turn 1 in your deployment zone, which will be nice for everyone. It's also right next to one of the objectives that are moving in. Other than that, it's pretty bog standard when it comes to like terrain wise. It's just really that move and mission that grinds my gears a little bit. If it was like, you know, usually those objectives come in 6, right? If there were 6 total that you could move, it'd be a little bit different for me. But because specifically I don't have enough objectives to cover that,
it's annoying.
But it's a little annoying for me. But I also don't like they move a decent bit. Like they move Pythagorean's theorem. You know what I mean? Of an 11 by 15, right? So if you don't have access to fast moving things like that, you might have
a tough time catching up.
Exactly. Yeah. But I'll pass it back over to you.
Yeah. So my 5th one, Battle Plan 5's Feral Foray. This one is a 6 objective Dawn of War style deployment again. This one's fairly simple when it comes to scoring. It's hold. You get 2 victory points if you hold 1 objective, 2 victory points if you control 2 or more, and then 2 victory points if you control more. Right? It's very standard. But the twist with this one is the underdog can raid an objective in a battle round, where essentially they can go, and if they're contesting an objective that they don't control in the opponent's zone, they can turn it off for scoring for that round. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's interesting, right? Because then you can be like, oh, like I want my light cav to essentially sprint over there, touch on, survive an attack, and then turn it off for my opponent. That's really great. But like if that happens, there's a lot of like caveats for that to happening, and it only really matters if you're going first. You know? Like if you're not going first, like you sprinting over there and turning it off, I mean, maybe it's good for you because then it doesn't count in terms of scoring for like you hold your home 3, so you will get more. You know what I mean? So there's definitely like reasons to do it, but it's just like if they're not super close, they're 22 inches apart, and it's of like I feel like turning off objectives in that way, especially when you don't have to like get control of it. It's very like, oh, this is either just asking for like a counter charge, or this is like it's not. I don't think it's good minutia. You know what I mean? Like I think it's weird.
Yeah.
I don't love. I mean, the deployment's like fairly bog standard, but the places of power are kind of off in the corners, and they're little, which I don't love.
You have access turn 1, which is nice.
You have access turn 1, but it's like, I mean, you don't really have access turn 1 because you have to be within engagement range of it, and it's like 9 inches beyond, and movement phase is after. You know what I mean? So it's like you won't be able to get to it.
Yeah, place of power happens at the start of the turn.
Yes, exactly.
It's a start of a turn ability.
Yeah, so it's like unless you can deploy on it or within 3 inches of it, sorry. But regardless, I think it's like too obscuring again. Nice for cover from shooty armies, but like I don't know. This one kind of like I know what they were trying to do.
Feral Foray is 4 medium obscuring terrains.
Yeah, 4 medium obscuring terrains. So it's like another like big like aha, you can't shoot me here. You know what I mean? I'm hiding. I don't know. It doesn't really do it for me. This is going to be my D tier. I think that it's interesting. I think it's simple. I think that I don't think it's a bad. It's not my worst mission. STARSTRIKE is worse than this. Yeah. But it's not engaging, and the twist that they add is like. It's like there's too many caveats to make it impactful, I think. You know what I mean? Like there's situations that it's impactful, but it's like if you're like doing this, and this, then it's impactful. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like I kind of want it to be a more it's one of those twists that I'm honestly gonna when I play it, I'm just gonna forget about it because it never comes up. You know?
Yeah. Like you said, the asterisks are impeding like
playability.
Playability, exactly. So hopefully there'll be situations where like both people remember and they know what to do. But
meh.
Makes sense.
D tier. And back to you, Kyle.
My next one is Battle Plan 5, Table 2. This is my B tier, and this is close to the chest. So 6 objectives. It's hold 1 for 1 point, hold 2 for another 1 point, and hold more for 2. And then the prime objective is if you hold the prime, you also get 2. So the territory, it's weird. It's like the stair step deployment, but not all the way. There's like a chunk in this each corner that is blank, is neutral. So it's great for flanks. So I like it.
Yeah, it's great for. I'm gonna go touch that flank.
That's a flank. It's an easy turn 1 flanks. There are 2 places of power in the middle, small and obscuring. There's small and medium obscuring. And the twist, at the start of each battle round, the non-active player picks an objective in their territory to be the prime until the next turn. The underdog can make the player pick a different one on a 5-up. So I like the simplicity of that. And I don't think like it's like 1/3 of a time the other person has to pick a different one. Pick one objective in their territory to be the prime objective until the start. So I like that there's choice of each like player gets to pick a prime. You know what I mean? I like that it's in their territory. In their territory until the start of the next turn. So you kind of can like, I don't know, it helps the feels bad moments of, like you said, like those D3 like prime objective movings. Like you can kind of guarantee that you're going to get the prime,
which is better,
which is nice.
Yeah.
The underdog person can make the other person like change it, but like even if they're changing it, there's 3 in their territory. So like, oh, I'll just pick the other one that my people are on. You know what I mean? Usually you're fighting if you're fighting over someone's territory in their objective. Or fight over an objective in their territory. Usually, it's only the one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's usually
there's a spicy objective and then other objectives.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of how this game tends to boil out, especially like with this sort of deployment, where it's like naturally to flip to where like the 6, like 3 on each side,
your 3 become my 3, my 3 become your 3.
Yeah, well, it shifts to where it's like you have 2 in your back. I have 2 in my back, and we're fighting over these 2 in the middle. Yes. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's my B tier because it's relatively simple, and I like the fact that you can kind of guarantee that prime. Which I think like when we do the summary, we might have to talk about that because the like my opinions of them like are like, oh, if I can like go in knowing how to play this guaranteed, I like it more. You kind of like it where it's like a little more dynamic and forces the person to think.
Yeah, like I like thinking like some element of you have to like make decisions on your feet. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're standing there, the game has been changed. What do you do? You know,
I am making decisions. They're called battle tactics.
That's true. But those
I have to think about all that.
Yeah, but think more, Kyle. Think more.
Think more. But yeah, other than that, I like how the territories, and I like the small stuff. So I'll hand it back over to you.
All right, cool. So I mean, if you've been paying attention, you kind of know where we're going to land here on this one. This is going to be my S tier. It's Jaws of Gallet. Very, very popular mission. But I love the deployment zone, right? 5 objective mission. Deployment zones are in L deployments, giving that little like, quadrant for, an easy seize the take the flanks, which is nice. The objective scoring is fairly simple, where it's 1, 2 more, right, and then battle tactic. But the underdog has the opportunity to start turning off objectives after turn 2 or after the end of turn 2. So it's one of those that the underdog has a lot of power, right? Because similarly, like you'll see, like, okay, like there's a ton of fighting that erupts over the center, and if you as the underdog lose that fight, you turn that objective off. There's no reason for them to stay there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We played this one.
Yeah, exactly.
This is one of the ones that we played.
Yes, and it's very fun. I think it's a very good mission. It's balanced in. I think it's very a balanced mission where there's complexity to the scoring in like what the underdog can do. There's not in this game. I do find that there's like not frequently an underdog after turn 1. Like it is fairly easy to get the like 1, 2 more, as long as you're kind of like prioritizing target, like objectives you can take. And there's a lot of objectives in this one. Like there's 5 not that a lot, but there's like enough objectives that you can kind of flip it back and forth. It's an odd amount. It's not like there's 3 in your zone, 3 in my zone, So I think it's one that will see a lot of play in tournaments, and I think it's a nice, like, engaging and tactical without being too much, right? Like it kind of bumped out focal points for me, just because like focal points can almost have too many rules and too many like different iterations of like where things can go, where it's like hard to kind of pinpoint where your opponent and what your opponent wants to do. This one's much more kind of like linear, but it's still engaging. In addition, you have 2 big places of power right at your line, so it's going to be engaging, but you have to move forward to touch them, which is nice. You have some obscuring, but it's between 2 objectives, so if you really want to keep something safe, you can, but it's not as impactful to kind of like just shut off shooting armies. And the deployment map is honestly one of the things that sold me on this. I love the L deployment because then you really have a lot of choice of where you want to allocate resources. And yeah, that's my S tier. Can't wait to play it again.
Yeah, that's a good one. And in like compare the underdog bonus of this one to the one where it's just deal D3 wounds to everyone on objective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this one's so much more impactful when it comes to having the ability to potentially catch up.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what underdog stuff should be, IMO. It should be like stuff that's like, oh, this helps you catch back up.
Yeah, in the scoring, not in like damage.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, and going back in, James started left on a high note. I'm going to end on a low note. I got limited resources.
Woo! It's back, baby!
It's back! Why did they do this to me? Well, actually, literally in my notes, it's F tier, but the only note that I have is pro. They don't call it meltwater. Yeah. They just say siphon resources. So I think they rewrote this a little bit, but it's still equally as complicated. So there are 6 objectives, and they're like kind of both on slants.
Yeah.
Dawn of War deployment. It's score 2 victory points if you control at least 1. Score 2 if you control 2. Score 2 if you control more, and 4 for battle tactics. The twist is when a player gains control of an objective, they start to extract resources from it. After scoring victory points, if the active player controls an objective they controlled at the end of their previous turn, they have extracted all the resources from that objective. For the rest of the battle, that player cannot control that objective. Once a player has extracted all of the resources from an objective, they can still contest it to prevent their opponent from controlling it, but they cannot, but they do not and cannot control it themselves. The underdog can add 3 to control score to friendly units that are controlling an objective from which they are extracting resources. So it's a little bit simpler than it used to be, I would say, potentially, because they did go out and like out of their way to add in a paragraph that says you can still contest it for the purpose of denying it, but you cannot control it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a little more like transparent. I wouldn't say it's simpler.
It's not simpler. My biggest thing about this one, and honestly, is because it brings up the rule discussion of, okay, well, my unit has a bonus if I am sitting on an objective I control.
But
you
I can't control it.
But you can't control it.
But you can start, but you're not controlling it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The objectives don't go away. That's the big thing. Is like you can still sit on it and your people can contest it, but they can never control it.
Yeah, so it doesn't count for you for scoring, but you can stop them from scoring.
You can stop them from scoring. But it also brings in that mini game of, okay, well, we got to like not deploy on the objectives, you know what I mean? And like basically just kind of choose when to like
DDR it a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. It's one of those things where, yeah, someone who knows what they're going to do is probably going to win because they know exactly how to use their objectives. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You also have the potential to just be like, score as many like battle points as you can. Say like, I don't have anything else to score. Just go kill your opponent, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of play in this, but I don't like this personally. The reason it's my F tier is because I've had multiple discussions with people at the table about this exact interaction, and I don't think it got any like clearer when it comes to this. I think there are still going to be interactions where we have to like sit down and walk through the rules and understand how this works, and also keep track of what we owned last turn.
Yeah, it's not the bookkeeping of this mission sucks.
Yeah, there's a lot of bookkeeping. This feels like I'm fighting the mission, not I'm fighting my opponent.
Yeah,
which is not something that I want to do. I want to like, I like to live in the world where like I want to play against my opponent. I don't want to play against the mission. That's just me.
I think that's a very common sentiment, is that if the rules feel like it feels so oppressive that you feel like you have to like, I mean, this is like the mission that I remember like you and that one guy, like, we're just like, no, this is how it works. We've gone
this
through
is how
this.
it works.
Yeah.
Because
it's brutal. It's just a brutal mission. Yeah.
Because like there'd be objectives that I would basically like give to him, you know what I mean, to like let him score so that it's available for me to score later. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then at the end of the game, it was a lot of like, well, I still have primary 2 score and you have no primary 2 score. So you can only score battle tactics. You know what I mean? And I'm like, that just doesn't feel good, especially like for a person who isn't doing something like this, where they're sitting down and going through every single mission and like understanding it fully, like digesting it and breathing it in. Like, how are you expecting anyone to know what how to play intelligently when you roll up to a table just randomly?
Yeah.
Like, you can play intelligently with like Jaws of GALLET. You know what I mean? You can play intelligently with like Border War. You can't play intelligently with this if you haven't seen it once.
Yeah. It's going to feel very punishing.
Yeah, true. But that wraps up all 12 missions. We did it pretty fast. We're sitting at a solid 43 minutes, so we have a bit of time to kind of decompress and sort of talk about the missions overall and maybe make a wish list of things that we want to see on the first tournaments that we go to this edition.
What was your S tier again? Your S tier was your first one. Which one was that?
It was gonna make me look at my notes.
I'm gonna make you look at your notes. I need to pull out your
Battle
missions.
for the Past.
Yeah,
it was a simple one.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, I like that one specifically because one, there's 4 objectives. Like I like it when there's like 5 objectives, or 4. Because
I like
6,
this deployment as well.
I know, right? 6 gets into a weird section where it's like it's very, very difficult to hold more than your opponent.
Yes.
Because now you have to score. You have to be on 4 objectives.
And you got to push them off. You got to push them off of one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Where like Battle for the Past, because there's 4 and because there's 1 in your territory, 1 in the enemy territory, and 2 in the line, you can kind of make 2 scraps, take the 2 ones off the center, and say, "Hey, now I own more than you."
Yes.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one's also like you score 1 point for holding the points incentivize you playing the game. You know what I mean? Where it's like the one in your one in your territory is only worth 1. The one on the borders are worth 2 each, which is important, and then the one in the back line is worth 5.
It's like similar to Border War with a better twist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's literally Border War with a better twist and a more interesting deployment.
That's why I saw this. I was like, the twist is like barely a paragraph. The underdog is super easy to understand, and I was just like, yep, I'll play that every day and twice on Wednesday.
Yeah,
you know,
we should definitely play this one. I want to play this one.
We should play this one. I feel like it's going to be in packs because it's simple.
Yeah, I think Jaws of Glutt's going to be in every tournament pack.
Oh yeah,
like no question.
Yeah, that's a good one for the viewers out there. What do you think are ones that they should focus on because you feel like it's going to be in every pack they go to?
Yeah, tell us what's your top 6? You know what I mean? Like the game things that you think they're going to play. You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or if you're a tournament organizer, what are you picking?
Yeah, exactly. Please let us know.
Please let us know. Yeah, so we can get more practice in. I do like Scorched Earth. I think I put it pretty low. I don't hate it. It's just like there's so many asterisks, and if you're going in your opponent's territory to take something, usually you're going to take it. You're not going to we're not going to scuffle. No, you know.
Yeah, I'm either going to go in there and do what I said I'm going to do, or I'm not even going to try.
Yeah, my 2 favorite are definitely Battle for the Past and Better Part of Valor. Better Part of Valor, just like I love the concept of someone killing something and being like +10 to control score.
I'm so cool. Win it,
what was your A tier?
My A tier was Focal Points. That's it's a little more complicated. It's got a lot of that's the one where it's it has labeled objectives. So there's 2 home objectives, 2 objectives.
I really like the twist in that one.
Yeah, the twist where you can turn the center objective into one of you can turn it into a home or turn it into a flank. It's really cool because it's I can get those bonus points, and it's easier for me to get those bonus points. Not if you're getting tabled, but it's one of those I think it's a very impactful twist. There's multiple ways to max primary. It's not just we're trading the same objective back and forth the entire game. There's strategy to it. So it's engaging. There's a lot of rules. It's engaging. And I think that the what's it called? The twist is, and the underdog twist is also strong, you know?
Yeah.
So you have to again, there's an element of the game where it seems punishing for players that are ahead to have to compensate for that, but it's a test of oh, listen, if you're really better than this person, you'll be able to win when they have a buff. You know what I mean? And it's if they start winning, then you'll get the buff, and you'll kind of flip back and forth. You know?
Yeah. Were there any twists? I know that we talked about this previously. Are there any twists that you're worried about? Oh, I'm gonna submarine so that I get the twist.
Yeah, I think,
or I get the underdog. Sorry.
I mean, Jaws is one of those where I kind of want to be losing because turning off your home objective is ridiculous. Just being the one in your deployment zone that you want to hold the whole game, that's off for you forever now. You know?
Yep.
Border War is meh. The twist in Border War is bad. The only thing I love Border War, the only thing holding it back is the twist. Because
remind me what the twist was again.
It was +1 to hit when you charge under the home objective of your opponent, and I'm just I don't really care. You know what I mean? I don't really fucking care about that.
Yeah, I maybe squeezed some back there at one point in time. I don't know, unless the whole table has to flip.
Yeah,
but even and then you're doing that, which we see that a lot. A lot of games end up like that, where it's it starts on Dawn of War deployment.
Yes,
I put all of my units on this side, you put all your units on that side, 100%. And we just do this. You know what I mean? And now our back objectives are now the middle objectives.
Yes, I think that I think Jaws and maybe Focal Points are the strongest twists, which is another one where I like that it has impact on the game because it changes the game, you know? Again, the ones in my lower, my shifting a lot of the negatives that I'm throwing on these missions are because it either doesn't matter or it's too complicated, right?
Yeah.
FORAY, it just doesn't I feel it's got an interesting twist, but I just feel it's way too conditional. If it was a little less conditional, then I'd be more interested in it. Or even I don't know, it's just one of those, like, I don't see. I feel like there's going to be very specific armies. Like, I feel like Eels, like Ideneth is going to play that one well. I think that the whatever it's called, the Death Riders, the Black Knights, the like these like Blood Knights, fast hitty cav are gonna like sprint into an objective, kill a lot, get control of it or not, and if they don't get control of it, they can shut it off. You know, it's nice that you're getting something for sacrificing that unit, but I'm also like, I just feel like that doesn't feel good for you or them. Like,
I know. It's so much better to just take it.
Just take it? Yeah, exactly. Just win the fight. I don't know. I also don't love 3 objectives in your home, 3 objectives in your opponent's zone, because I just feel like it's like...
I also don't like that. That is, like, from it's definitely from, like, a player perspective, not, like, a game design perspective, personally, because I've been on the side where it's just like, all right, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send, like, a hammer or quasi-hammer into your weak point, because I just need to hold more, and ideally score an objective, or ideally score a battle tactic somewhere in there. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what the game boils down to, is like, I'm sending things into yours, you're sending things into mine, or like we do the
I go to your home, you go to my home,
we flip.
Yeah.
And then we turn it into basically an objective where there's like 2 in my home, 2 in your home, and now there's 2 in the middle.
Yeah.
Instead of like 3 in the home, 3 in the home.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how it usually works, because like people want to be able to go in and like they want to be able to hit that hold more with committing as few points as physically possible.
Yeah,
because you're going to get clapped back.
Yeah, it's risky. You're throwing them, whatever you're putting in there, hammer or anvil, you're putting it in range of like their entire army. You know what I mean? Or like a large portion of their army, right?
You're going to get clapped back. I know that like that's something that's a big difference between 40K and Age of Sigmar. I was watching the 40K like worlds. I think it was back before 10th, maybe, but it basically boiled down to, all right, how many points can I dedicate to taking the objective to like hold more, where I don't care if that dies next turn, because you're going to immediately kill it and also hold more. You know what I mean? The hold more at like that high of table was like guaranteed. You know, it was just are you committing more points than I'm committing?
Yeah. Are you leaking slower than I'm leaking?
Exactly. 100%. Yeah. And we have to do this for 5 turns, and basically whoever can like
leak slower
wins. I don't think Age of Sigmar is like that, because we're much more melee centric. But it's definitely something to consider. That's like,
I'd say it's even hard though. Like a lot of the like, it's just hard to get over there. Like it's 22 inches away. Like
I definitely like see like that almost like gentleman's agreement of like, all right, we're gonna do the flip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With it's most like of those objectives.
Yeah, you're going on the left flank, I'm going on the right flank. Like that's where our fighting's gonna be going on.
True. Yeah. The then the limited resources also has like
it's crazy they kept that one, if I'm being honest. There's other good missions from from Magic Nation. And that was not one of them. I like Nexus Collapse more than I like that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Nexus Collapse is very similar to Jaws of Gallet, right?
Yeah.
Because you're, like, bringing them down.
But it's 2. Jaws? You shut off 2 objectives.
In Nexus?
In Nexus.
Oh, okay. Yeah. In Jaws, does it deal damage when it collapses?
I don't think so, no.
I don't think so either. That's the only thing with them bringing back, like, quasi-familiar ones is like, now I gotta remember the nuances of why does this cause damage? Does this cause damage?
Exactly. Yeah. Why is this different than the other one?
It's different very slightly. Same thing with like your number one and the first one you covered and the first one I covered are like very similar.
Yeah, very, very similar. Your S tier is literally a better version of my Border War. Yeah, my B tier. It's just like, oh, you have a better twist, and a better deployment, therefore it's better.
Any final notes, any like summaries of kind of like what you've seen as you've gone through?
I want to play your S tier. Like
now. Yeah, that one's a good one. That one is a good one. I definitely want to get more reps on that. I definitely think Battle for the Pass and your first one are probably going to be
Border War
in there a lot.
Yeah, I think there's a nice middle, like to that little like middle tier where it's like easy, somewhat like the twist is there to like remind you that there is a twist. Yours obviously is better than mine, but like I think Battle for the Past is going to be in every pack. I think Jaws of Blood's going to be in every single pack. I can see Border War also being in every pack.
I think the Vice is going to be in every pack.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be easy for people to be like, oh, that's fun. You know what I mean? Fighting over moving objectives instead of just like camping. People hate it when people just like, they have their everything planned out and like they just camp on the objectives they're camping on and then send their entire force to like go steal objectives from you. And you're like, damn.
STARSTRIKE
feels like I don't have a whole lot I can do because I don't have anything that has 20-inch move to go touch your stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm boxed in.
Yeah.
So people kind of like that moving.
Also, what's it called? The Vice, like you have the issue where like there's a turn 3, you're all fighting on the 1, you know?
Yeah,
like,
turn 4. Turn 2, they move from the edge to like now we're in like a normal deploy or a normal objective, and then 4 and 5 is just we're scrapping in the middle.
That's like STARSTRIKE starts like that. Like it's like
and I'm
scrapping.
Just like,
that sucks. Like I don't.
Yeah,
you know,
you're gonna lose things that you don't want to lose turn 1.
People are just not gonna score 6 points. Like, if you're playing KO, you just don't touch that. You know what I mean? Like,
you don't want to get.
You're gonna go down by 12 in the first 2 turns.
Yeah. What's the underdog on that?
The underdog is can make the active player re-roll the dice when the mortal damage is inflicted to each of the underdog's units. So you get to like re-roll the mortal wounds.
Oh, it's not even re-roll the objective; it's re-roll the mortal wounds. Ew,
yeah, it just sucks. It sucks. The mission sucks.
Let
me know if I'm wrong in the comments, but this one sucks.
This one sucks. Yeah. Overall, I like the I like them. We're being critical and we're putting them into tiers. You know what I mean? But I think we do like. There's gonna be like 6 good missions.
Yeah.
There might be one kind of stinker in there that we play at a tournament.
Yeah.
I swear to God, if people play limited resources, what is wrong with you?
I feel like they are. I'm not even gonna lie.
They're
going to because it's like complicated. It's that like. Again, I don't know why we always hit it. Every big tournament we've been to, it's like the second mission you play. And I'm like, this is brutal. Like make this be the, like, I mean, you can't make it be the last mission of the day. Make it the first mission of, like, the second day. You know? Like more competitive, you're kind of in stride, but, like, oh my God. You're, like, the first mission of the first day is limited resources followed by Nexus collapse. Like, do you want me to stop playing this game?
That's like I have to engage my brain in a negative way, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to engage my brain in a fun way, where I'm playing with my opponent, not me and him like story timing the mission rules.
Yeah, but other than that, I really don't have much. STARSTRIKE sucks.
Yeah, we know which ones.
Yeah,
this is another thing that we wanted to cover. Is like I just wanted to be aware of like the ones when they're like, oh yeah, by the way, we have a STARSTRIKE, limited resources, and but I don't know, focal points, like the next one.
Yeah, focal points is also not simple, but I like it a lot. I think it's fun.
True. But I think we'll call it there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. We're definitely going to get out there and we're going to get more games when we can. Again, we're unfortunately adults, so we have busy schedules, but we're super looking forward to getting some games in.
Yeah. See you guys next time. Thank you guys so much for joining in. Please leave a comment. We've been loving them.
Thanks for hanging out, guys. We appreciate the support. We appreciate everyone who is tuning in and following. We love you guys.
Yeah.
All right. We'll catch you guys later.
See ya.
See ya.